Joining us tonight, Heritage Foundation Senior Legal Fellow, former Department of Justice Attorney Hans von Spakovsky. Hans, great to have you with us. Let's get right to it. The top prosecutor in the Ukraine is going to carry out, and perhaps has already begun to carry out, what has been styled as an audit of previous investigations by the General Prosecutor's Office that would include looking into Burisma, the energy company with which Hunter Biden, the former vice president's son, has been connected.
Yeah, and look, that was a legitimate inquiry by President Trump. Why? Because the son of the vice president was given a job on the board in an energy company making $50,000 a month, over $3 million, in an industry in which he has absolutely no experience. So that brings up the specter of possible corruption. Was he given this job in order to curry influence with his father, who was the vice president? And look, the vice president admitted on videotape that he threatened the Ukrainian government with withholding a $1 billion loan guarantee by the United States unless they fired the prosecutor who was doing that investigation. I would think anyone interested in preventing corruption would want that to be investigated.
Well, and the vice president bragging, he really didn't just admit it. He's bragging about having threatened to get rid of that multi-billion-dollar commitment to the Ukraine if the prosecutor wasn't fired. It's straightforward. So why wasn't that investigated in the first place? Could it be because the State Department under Hillary Clinton didn't have an inspector general?
Yeah, I don't understand that. The IG should have looked into that. The IG also should have looked. There
wasn't one. She never appointed one.
Right. I mean, that should have been investigated. And it's not the only instance.
It was much more convenient, I'm sure, Hans, for it to not have an inspector general carrying out the concerns about ethics and legality and all that sort of cumbersome interference with what she perhaps was practicing.
Right, but they did have an attorney general and they did have a Justice Department. And the Justice Department also should have looked into this because, remember, this isn't the only instance of the vice president's son enriching himself while Biden was vice president. He also got invited onto an official trip to China with the vice president. And as soon as he got back, the Chinese government places $1.5 billion with him for investment. Again, was that a legitimate transaction, or was it basically the Biden family enriching themselves using the vice president's position? All of that needs to be investigated.
It does need to be investigated, but instead the radical Dems are investigating again, are still the President of the United States, claiming falsely all sorts of ridiculous things, trying to get everyone to believe a thespian reading by Adam Schiff at the committee hearing is actually the words of the president, trying to suggest that this president somehow, and by the way, we're supposed to not believe our lying eyes as we read the transcript of his phone call with Zelensky. We're supposed to believe Adam Schiff and his fictional account.
Well, yeah, and you'll notice that they don't actually cite any federal statute or federal law that they claim that the president violated. There's been some vague allegation that this somehow was a violation of campaign finance laws. I could tell you, I'm a former commissioner on the Federal Election Commission, and what the president did in that Ukrainian call was not a violation of federal campaign finance law.
Well, at this point, we've got IGs traipsing up to Capitol Hill. Today, Atkinson, the DNI's Inspector General, saying that he was unaware that the whistleblower, who he acknowledged was biased politically, he didn't know the depth of it, apparently. And he was not told by either the whistleblower or anyone else that the whistleblower had contact with the Intelligence Committee.
Yeah, but that's not the only problem with this particular IG. He said he considered this whistleblower complaint credible?
Right.
Well, the whistleblower complaint was all based on secondhand knowledge and newspaper reports, and the prior policy of the IG's office, you can see this on the form, the complaint form, that you had to fill out. Before they received this whistleblower complaint, their policy was always you had to have first-hand knowledge, and there's a reason for that. Second-hand knowledge, hearsay, is not credible. That's why it's not accepted as testimony in any federal or state court anywhere in the country.
It's in the tradition of Anglo-American law
that
it be so. A presumption of innocence, that has been discounted by the radical Dems. And now you don't even need to bother with eyewitnesses. You can count on hearsay for almost anything, at least according to Nancy Pelosi and her leader of this effort to overthrow the president through the pretext and pretense of a impeachment inquiry. Hans, It's always great to see you. Thanks so much.
Sure, thanks for having me.